Hello and welcome to Youth Code Jam's online bits and bytes lessons. Today we're going to be making a video game based off of a popular arcade game from the 80s. Ours is going to be called Space Tourette, but you've probably seen some new versions of it and you'll recognize how it works. So you're going to get a little insight into some of the code or a form of the code that goes into making that game work. So let's go ahead and get started. In a new browser, go to arcade.makecode.com. Click on the new project button and give it a name. I'm going to name it Space Tourette. We're going to name it 2 just to be safe, in case I've done this before. And we're going to jump right into this by creating our turret and our meteors. So we're going to have to shoot meteors in order to win, and if they get us, we die. That's the overview of the game. So let's go to sprites. Get 2 of these set my sprite blocks. If I ever need duplicates of a block in the same step, I'm just going to right click that block and duplicate it instead of going back into the drawer. It saves me a little time. I'm going to click the word that says my sprite here and give it a new variable name. So click new variable and name it turret. And same thing for the second one. We're going to click on it, name it new variable, and name it meteors. Go back, actually while you're on the meteors block, come to the end here where it says player, add a new kind, and name this one meteor. And the very last thing we're going to do here is set our sprite for our turret. So click on the gray square, go to gallery, and you're going to look for kind of this tower turret-like thing. They're towards the bottom. There's a bunch of different colors for them. You can choose whichever one you want. Here they are. So there's orange and kind of a purple pink and a blue and a green. I'm going to go with blue today. Once you select which one you want, just click done and you can see it appears there. For now, we're not going to worry about creating our meteors. The meteors are going to appear in the screen after we start playing. We don't want them there quite on start, but we do want them to exist when the game starts, or at least tell the game they exist, so that's why we're creating this here. Alright, so we need to give our turret a starting position. Unlike a lot of our games that we've done, we don't want it to start right there in the middle. So go to sprites and get a set my sprite position to X and Y. Use the drop down to change my sprite to turret. Change the X value to 80. And the Y value to 103. Next, we need a way to move the turret around the screen. So go to controller, hit move, click and drag this move my sprite with buttons. Once again, make sure you change my sprite to turret. Click the plus sign to get velocity of X and Y. Change the X value from 100 to 35. So that's change 100 to 35, and then change the Y value to 0. So we're only going to let our turret move left and right, not up and down. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is work on our background, and this first step is easy, but after this it will get a little tricky, so pay attention to everything after this step. Go to scene, get set background color to, add it to the block. Click on that gray circle and change it to black. I know it's already set to black, but this will make sure it stays that way throughout the game. Now here comes the start of the tricky part. Back in the scene drawer, get a set tile map to block. Click on the gray square. We're going to enter this editor, and this is where we're going to make a lot of our changes. So the first thing we want to do is where it says 16 and 6 by 16 down in the left corner. You're going to change that first 16 to 10 and the second 16 to 8. And that's going to make our active screen space just a little bit smaller. The next thing we're going to do is choose a tile that goes all the way across the bottom here. We're just going to have one row that goes across the bottom, so it doesn't have to be too fancy. I'm going to stick with the forest theme, but you guys can, so it's under gallery, You guys can change it to different themes. There's aquatic, dungeon, and miscellaneous. Again, it doesn't matter too much. I'm going to stick with forest. I'm going to choose this middle one that's all dirt and rock. Take your cursor and place it in the bottom left corner. And to add a square, you can tap or add a tile. And just do one row all the way across the bottom of our square here. And that's it. That's all we're going to add of those tiles. The very last step we're going to do is make it a wall so that nothing can fall underneath that row. So to do that, come back over to the right side. So we steadily moved up. We started in the bottom corner. We moved up to tiles. Now you're going to click this 3D square here. And you can see it's highlighted red. Take your cursor and over that row we just drew, you're going to turn the whole wall red by clicking your cursor over each square, or you can click and drag all the way across. So it should be highlighted red when you're done. This whole process we just did tends to be a little tricky for students. So if you need to pause and rewind the video to see what I did and how I did it, that's fine. I will continue with the next step, but that is an option for you. You don't have to just keep rushing through this. You can rewind if you need to. Once that's done, we're going to click the done button. And my screen will refresh, and that should appear in a second. There it goes. So there's the bottom. I'm only able to move left and right. I can't move down. And that, making that a wall, make sure that I don't accidentally fall through. Okay, so with our tile map done, we're going to give ourselves 3 lives, so 3 chances to win the game, and we're going to keep track of our score. So go to the info drawer, and you're going to get set score to 0, and then you're going to go back to info and get a set life to 3 block. And we're just going to leave those as is. We don't need to change them. Alright, so now we're going to have some interactions with our turret and the meteor. So go to the sprites drawer and get a on create block. So we have create up here, but we're actually going to scroll down to life cycle, and we want a on created sprite of kind player. We're going to add that to our code. And if you remember before, we created our meteor sprite, but we didn't do anything with it. This is where we're going to actually create the sprite and set an image to it. So we need to change player to meteor. And now you're going to go into sprites and scroll all the way to the bottom and get set my sprite image to. Click on the gray square, go to gallery, and we're going to use the rocks. There's some rocks in here. There's also some meteors, so you can use either these rocks that exist. So that's an ocean rock, or you can scroll down and use these meteors right here if you want, whichever you want to do. Or I guess they're asteroids, whichever you want. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to stick with the activity sheet so it matches and add those in. Right. So now here comes kind of a weird part. We don't need the variable names we created for this one, because this is going to be kind of like a copy of a sprite rather than the sprite itself. So what we're going to do is, instead of using our existing variable names, we're going to use this general sprite block. So you can see with my cursor on it, it's highlighted in like this white dotted line. Click on that and drag it into the My Sprite space. You're actually going to see that that block got pushed out. That's fine. You can just delete it by dragging it over to the drawers. We're going to repeat that step a lot. So if you didn't see it, I took the block that says sprite from here and just dragged it into this space down here. And then I deleted the one that it pushed out. So we're going to do that a couple times in this block of code. Next, go back to the sprites drawer and get a block that says set my sprite position to X and Y. Again, I'm going to drag, always take the sprite block from this one up here. So click and drag that onto my sprite. It pushed my sprite out. We delete that. Then go to pick random from the math drawer. So pick random 0 to 10. Place that over the X and set those values to 15 and 145 we're going to leave y at 0. Okay, the last thing for this block is go back to the MySprites drawer, grab a set MySprite velocity to Vx, Vy. Again, from this onCreated block, drag a sprite block where it says MySprite, delete MySprite. Vx should be 0, and leave Vy at 50. Alright, so we have our asteroids created. We need to do a little bit more code for how to interact with this. We're about halfway through. Okay, so go to the controller drawer, get an on a pressed block, then go to the sprites drawer and get a block that says set projectile. So we need to scroll down a bit. It's going to be this first one here, set projectile to blah 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 blah. We want to make sure it says the from my sprite here. Add that into onPressed A. After projectile, what is it? Let's pause for a second. Let's skip that. Go to where it says MySprite, change MySprite to Tourette. Vx should be 0. And here Vy should be negative 50. Okay, on the projectile, you can create or draw anything you want. I think I'm going to go to gallery and see what I can use here as something to act as a projectile. What's this? That's a coin. Okay. So you can create something to shoot towards the rock. So I'm actually going to choose one of these little asteroids to do. But you can draw something if you want. And that's all we're going to do in that block. Now we're going to get an overlaps block from the sprites drawer. So go to overlaps, go to sprites, and under the overlap section, grab this first event block. And we're going to change this player to meteor. And this last player, the second player, to projectile. So when the projectile and our meteor collide or overlap or touch each other, we're going to have some code execute here. Go to the MySprite drawer once again and look for the block that says destroy. Sometimes it's faster just to search for it instead of look, so I'm going to type in the word destroy here. And I want this block that says destroy MySprite. I'm going to place it inside of our overlaps block, change MySprite to projectile. Then I'm going to duplicate that block, and in the second one, I'm going to change projectile to, we're actually going to drag this, remember when we dragged the sprite before? We're going to drag the sprite here, so that it destroys the current version of the meteor. Instead of the overall meteor, it's going to destroy the current version of it. And then, because we destroyed one, we're going to increase our score by 1. So go to info and get change score by 1. Okay, so now we need to add some extra code for when the meteor is destroyed and what needs to happen so the game continues. So go back to sprites. I'm going to type destroy again, or just reactivate it, and get this onDestroyed sprite of kind player block. Change player to meteor. Then go to the logic drawer and get an if then true block. If true then block, sorry. Then go to logic again and get a 0 equals 0 block. So under the comparison blocks, get 0 equals 0. Drop that in. We're checking here to see if we still have lives left. So if we don't have lives left, we're going to end the game and do a couple other things. But to do that, we need to go to info and get this life block right here. Add it to the 0. Then go to then go to sprites and get a set MySprite blocks. We're going to reset our blocks. Change MySprite to meteors. Leave that blank, leave the square blank again, and change player to meteor. Then go to the scene drawer and get a on sprite of kind hits wall. So we want this block right here. On sprite of kind player hits wall at location. We're going to change player to meteor. And then go back to the sprites drawer. I'm going to type in destroy again, or just click that search field. Get a destroy block. Add it inside here. Redrag where it says on sprite. Drag that to where it says my sprite. Delete my sprite. And then change life by -1. So under info, get change life by, and we have -1 there. So now you should be able to play. How do we play? We press the A button. So if the meteor hits us, we lose a life, as you can see. I'm not sure where my meteor is. It should be reappearing. Hold on a sec. Let me go back and review some code real quick. Yep, it should reappear. So yeah, each time it hits the ground, I lose a life. So that's one way to keep playing. You guys can keep working on it. I think one thing we didn't do was, I'm not really sure at this point. Sorry, I've done 4 of these videos today. So the last thing you guys can do is, if you want to join our live sessions, go to usecodejam.org. Under Find Programs, go to Bits and Bytes. We have 2 links on here that will take you to the registration site. It's through our partners, our sponsors for this program, Palo Alto College. So you can click on this link right at the top, or scroll down a bit, read about the club, and sign up here. Lessons are free. They are from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. Central Time, Mondays and Wednesdays right now. And if you can't make them, then we have all of our lessons in our our YouTube channel, and the current month's ones are hosted on this page. So I hope you enjoy this activity and have a good day.